Hello. Let's see, attendees. Oh, here comes some attendees. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. Very nice to see people coming on in. Hello, hello. Oh, very cool. I promise this isn't going to just be like us talking and saying.
But I think we've proved it could be.
Yeah, yeah. It very well could.
Hello, friends.
Hello, hello, hello. Super fun though. Oh, I see somebody has their hand up. You can, okay, so this is actually in what is it? Webinar mode. So if you do have a question, please. Oh, we already have a question. Just saying hello. Oh, very cool. Welcome. Hello. All right. Oh my. Okay, so as people are coming in, I am going to get us started. Hi everybody, this is Jessica. I am one of the librarians over at Syosset Public Library. My co-worker and co-host is on with me. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jen.
And we are extremely excited tonight. First of all, happy NaNoWriMo for those who are celebrating and writing. Thank you for taking the time out of your writing for this. And if you are not a NaNoWriMo person, welcome to BYOB with an author, two authors this time. Jen and I are on the clock, so we will not be partaking, but if you are enjoying a beverage at home, no judgment. This is just a few housekeeping rules before we get going. This is a fun, friendly event. So we do ask that you are on your best behavior. Any semblance of hate speech, racism, abusive language will have you booted from this webinar, which is really going to be a shame because I was pre-gaming non-alcoholically with Emily and Nekesa before we started this, and they are a blast. You are going to love them. A few more things. As mentioned before, this event is in webinar mode. So we do ask, we love interaction actually, but we do ask that you use the chat or the Q&A if you have comments or questions for Emily and Nekesa, or Nekesa and Emily, or either or. And Jen and myself will address them to the authors. So without any further ado, I am going to allow Emily and Nekesa to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their books.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's so nice that you guys are here with me, us, but also me. I'm Nekesa Afia. I'm the author of the Harlem Renaissance Mysteries, and the second book, Harlem Sunset, just came out. And it's perfect. No notes. Please buy it.
That is like the greatest introduction ever.
You don't need to know anything else. It's perfect.
It's great. It is great. You should buy it and read it. I'm Emily Edwards. I am the author of the Girl Friday Mysteries. I almost called it the Viviana Valentine Mysteries. No, she's your main character. And the first one, Viviana Valentine Gets Her Man, just came out like 2 days ago. And hopefully some of you have pre-ordered it and have read it because it is also really quite fun.
Yeah, also perfect. Also no notes. Buy that one too.
So you're both writing in the historical mystery genre. First of all, how do you know each other?
Twitter, yeah. I don't know how you came onto my consciousness, but the moment, do you know?
I do actually, because I was talking about how much I really wanted to read a Harlem Renaissance set mystery. And I think it was my friend Allison who's here was just like, boy, do I have the books for you, and linked me to you. And I was like, well, this is great. And I started reading them. They are wonderful.
Oh my God.
We have comments from the audience. Trisha says, congratulations, Emily. I received my copy yesterday. And Allison says, it was me. You're both welcome.
Hi, Allison. Oh my God, that's so wild. Okay. What was the question? How did we meet? Or wait, what?
Twitter breeds wonderful friends. And I mean, like, I've met so many fantastic people through our ill-fated and soon to possibly collapse social media network.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely that. And like Twitter is so perfect just for like quick interactions too. And there's so many like different like avenues for community. And it's just so cool that you can like find something that you like normally would have found just because it's like, oh, someone's like tweeting about this. And then like I totally saw the cover and I'm like, yeah, I need this book in my life. Yeah. Right now.
Same.
So this is the second book in Nekesa's series. And what book is this for Emily?
This is the first in the series.
This is the first in the series. And the reason I got confused is because we were talking about the third book, Slump, before. So first of all, how did you, okay, so Emily, this is for you. How did this story get started? This is a 1950s story, correct?
It is. So probably about 20, 30 years after Nekesas are set. And so, I really like the 1950s because it was horrible. And it was this really interesting time, especially in New York City. And I just really have a fascination with what happened to mostly women after World War II, where it was like, haha, you have a taste of freedom. And it's like, nope. And so I was really, really enjoying it. And so I thought of the name Viviana Valentine, and I was just like, well, she's a character. And so I thought she can only really do one thing, and that's to be like kind of a trashy secretary. It's like, she's great. And so that's just mostly where it came from there.
And Nekesa, tell everybody about Louise Lloyd, because if you have not read either of Nekesa's books, especially Dead Girls was like one of those books that I was reading, like I was like, yes, this is awesome. Tell everybody about her.
Lou is my tiny, tired lesbian. She like doesn't want to solve crime, but then it's like her only option. Really, she just wants to like dance and then make out with her girlfriend, which I think we can all agree is very relatable as goals. And she just like she gets wrapped up in her case, and like that's gonna be like a thread throughout this series. Is like crime is gonna find her, and she's gonna be like, not again, help. And she just likes to dance, and she likes to kiss her girlfriend, and she has one brain cell, and she uses it to pick out what she's gonna wear.
Emily, Lauren says, as a trashy secretary myself, I appreciate this.
Lauren is a very, very good friend of mine, and I'm very happy she's here.
So how did you all get started writing in general? I know we talked a little bit about this to begin with, but like, what did you like? Did you do something before you both became authors, or?
I've never, very lucky that I've never had to make a living doing something that wasn't writing, but it's been all sorts of weird kinds of writing. Like I started out as a fashion copywriter for a clothing website, which is like, if you want to learn all the synonyms for sparkly and tight and spandexy and stuff like that, boy, I got them for you. And then after that, I became a wine and spirits writer for a really long time. And that's most of my work. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I started writing books.
So I actually have a journalism background, and I'd be a terrible journalist, but it does really help inform like crime writing, which is nice because it's basically the same thing. But cops are trying to like solve the crime, and journalists are trying to like get the story. So it's like the same thing, but with different goals. And then I wrote the first draft of Dead Girls when I was about to graduate in 2017, and I have not looked back. Well, that's not true. I actually have a certificate in publishing, and I worked in publishing for like a year, and then a pandemic hit, and I was like, I guess I'll write full time then.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay? It's for both of you. I am super curious about like what your process was like for bringing New York in the past to life. Like, did you do research? Did you do any like, walking tours, or did you like do like what, how did you like, evoke the city in your books?
Mine is a lot of looking at, blessedly, thankfully, during a time like everybody was taking photos of things in the late 1940s and early 1950s. So thankfully, I have like actual historical records that I can go through and be like, if I need to describe a building in Chelsea, like I can go back through the internet, bless it, and actually find photos of the neighborhood and things like that. And, I talk about this a lot in the book, but like Robert Moses was doing so much work to New York City in the 1950s. And so much of it has been recorded for posterity of just like, I mean, it's fine that we have Lincoln Center, but what about the neighborhood that used to be there and things like that? So there's so much of it recorded that like, thankfully, as I'm writing, and blessed that the internet exists, because I don't know how you wrote before, like, online existed, but I can just look it up on the fly and just kind of say like, if I'm trying to go from here to here, or what kind of cars were available, or like what was the paint color for a Dodge Wayfarer, but that was available. You can just look it up at spur of the moment, and like it's really helped me lead the stories in certain directions of just being like, oh, I wanted them to live in this part of town, but that wouldn't have been appropriate for, her race, even in, in New York City in 1950. So what if we had her live in this part of town and things like that? So it does actually mold the story quite a bit. And I again, cannot stress enough how much like just Googling when you're just like in the middle of a sentence, and then you go off on a tangent for 3 hours and find out all these things that you never knew you wanted to know. But it really is very surprising of just like how much stuff you can dig up, of dealing with the start of modernity, I think, for, some of
Yeah.
that's based in 1950.
Yeah, we're so great. Like I am so grateful for the internet, because like I don't know how I've done it either way, like otherwise, I mean. But like I always try to like put like my little spin on things, because like in Harlem Sunset, like a character has like a red car, even though like that car would have been black, but like who cares, it's fiction, right? I am like just like being able to like go through the internet, and then like I have like books on like murder, like waste, I have books on like poison.
Yeah.
I've got like costume books, like you just need that stuff if you're a mystery writer. It's just like it's like a combination of like the internet and like going to the library and like reading stuff. And then like I always try to like kind of fill in my stuff with books like that like came out like during like the era. So I actually just read Passing by Nella Larson for something else, and it was very good. Also watched the movie on Netflix because that also was very good, and I'm still thinking about it. It's just like really everywhere. It's just so good.
Yeah. Like I have this a couple of years ago, I forgot what website it was. They wrote about the New York Public Library's like question line that you can just call up and ask questions. And I was like, that is now a device that my girls use like in the books, because, it's so important for them, because they don't have Google, it's 1950. They don't even have direct dial phones yet. And so they call the operator all the time and go like, get me to the library. I need to know like what this is. And that's because I'm Googling it too. And I'm like, I have to know that it's not, information that everybody would have. And so it's actually really fun that like you have to do research, like meta research, while you're writing the book, because it's like no girl in 1950 would know the answer to this, but somebody does, and she calls the library in order to get the answer.
It's so funny. It's so funny to think about that. I remember there was like a commercial back when like I don't remember how long ago, where like somebody was like calling the library to ask the librarian what the lyrics to Pour Some Sugar on Me was. And I'm not going to say that things like that still don't happen. And I'm just like, really? I think you probably could just, but like, I'm kind of also like relieved that I'm not answering the question, like, what are the lyrics to Pour Some Sugar on Me? But it is very interesting, just kind of how things were. Oh, research librarians. Yeah. And I apologize. I just heard that the chat is not working. I am trying to fix that as we speak. But yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely think there should be like a spin-off where like these librarians are handling like these random calls and then just going about their day.
That would be
Oh my God,
that
it
would
should
be
be
a really, really interesting book.
It'd be the
What's
TV show.
happening in this city? Like,
Is everybody in city doing murder? Guys, let's just go dancing. Who cares?
exactly. I love that
call
you
today.
mentioned that your girl is always tired. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's like a running theme where it's like there's this dead body, and you're just like, ugh.
Oh
She's
God.
like, I have other work I need to be doing.
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, I'm just trying to survive. I don't know how to.
bills to pay. Is there a crime happening in my vicinity? Like,
Yeah, that's something I really like wanted to keep because like the first like iterations of this novel, she was like working at like a shady like CIA type of company, which makes no sense. And like I can admit that now. I don't know what I was on. But like now she's just trying to like live her life. And like she's an unwilling main character. She like doesn't want this. She's like, I have other things.
I love that.
I love that whole idea of being an unwilling main character. Would you say the same thing about Viviana, Emily, or do you think like she's like a little different in that way?
I would not say the same thing, where she's just like, she's definitely overworked, and she's definitely like, I need to do this my way. Like, she's very controlling about things, but she's not unwilling, because like, I think she's a secretary to a private investigator. So she's just like, she knows the business, and she's just kind of like, I'm, wading in, like I'm up to my ankles in it already. Like it's going to get slimy at a certain point where she's just like, there's blood. I'm going to have to deal with it. But like, I think maybe she was reluctant at the beginning, where she was just kind of like, all I want to do is my job. My job should be 9 to 5 and answering the phones and like sending out invoices, but it isn't. And sometimes I have to like clean up all the messes. It's just that very like kind of a spin on the 1950s housewife, where she's just like, oh, I have to mop the floors. And this, but unfortunately, like Viviana's like, I have to mop the blood off the floor, not shiny and cute and pink and like Mamie Eisenhower pink kitchens and stuff like that.
Oh, Kitty! That's
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Robin.
Sorry.
She's a lot of trouble. She
I saw the tail and I was like, I need to see the cat.
so I have a question, and especially because we're talking about how like there's dancing, especially like in your book, Nekesa, and just and for Emily, you talk about research. How do you get the language down when you're writing a historical novel? Do you listen to music from that time? Do you just like go through endless amounts of like newspapers and you're just like, yeah, this is how people talk back then?
For me, like, I always intended it to be stylized. Like, I didn't necessarily want it to be how real people would talk. I wanted it to feel like a pulp novel. So I'm really lucky that I laid it on pretty thick in this first one. And like, I've seen some reviewers where they're like, this is too much. And I'm like, totally get it. Note received. Like, I'll dial it back a little bit. But like, I wanted it to sound like a sneering Humphrey Bogart villain most of the time.
Oh my God, you're totally nailing that. Please don't dial it back. Don't dial it back. In fact, turn it up to 50. So I was like reading it and I was like, this is like so like the voice is like pitch perfect. And I was I have a weird little thing where I don't sleep at night. So I was like up at like 2 a.m. I was just like reading. I was like, oh my God, next page. Oh my God, yes. And yeah, like I don't know how you nailed that tone, but like you totally did. For me, I tried. I it's so
Like
weird
hard.
because like especially because like 1920s slang is so different from like today. Like it just feels weird using it, even if I know I have like the contents correctly. I just feel weird saying it. I could be like, oh well, Lou's just gonna go iron her shoelaces real fast. Bye. It's so weird for me to use, and like I feel like it always comes out stilted. And it doesn't help that I'm writing in third person. It's hard, but like I'm trying, and I feel like I'm getting kind of better at it. And like I've definitely totally maybe have nailed Lou's voice, maybe.
I think you're good. Don't just like, you're truly like fantastic. But like, have you run across phrases where like there's no way you could glean what it means from context clues? Where it's like, where you're just like, what on God's green earth does that mean? And you're just like, oh, sure, it meant that they had to like go to the bathroom, but there's no
Yeah.
way anybody could
Yeah, there's
glean
no
that.
way. Yeah. Yeah. And like some of the like phrases are like rather like, oh, this and this. But like some of them are like, oh, that makes it 0 sense. I can't believe that's like something people would say. And like I don't ever think I really get it. And like
Yeah.
I've like, and then it's hard to find like the right words for the right situation. So like in my draft right now, I have like, oh, asterisk, because like I have to find like the perfect slang term and I haven't done that yet. Just because I do not know where it is. I like can't find it. I
Yeah.
might not use one.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm like, do you go back to like, oh no, even comic books are too late for, the 1920s. Oof.
I
That's
mean, I guess
rough.
I could like, I mean, yeah, I guess I could, but like it's still like I've been reading everything from the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I lucked out significantly because like the 1950s are like the age of media. And it's just like, it's just, there's so much to choose from where it's sometimes and you're running into things that you should not repeat and things like that. And you're just kind of like, okay, that's gonna stay in the past.
Yeah. Some things should not be brought up.
Yeah. Doll face is good enough. Like
Here's a great question from the audience here from Allison. What is each of yours favorite old-timey slang phrase?
oh, that's
I
a good
think-
one.
Yeah, I think mine is like either we're definitely saying like I'm gonna go iron my shoelaces for like when you have to go to the bathroom. Makes no sense. I love it.
That is
Or
pretty
you
great.
could like, yeah, you could call like a really hot guy a chic. And I haven't been doing that, but I should be, because I encounter many hot men in my life.
Oh, I'm trying to think like, there's this one that I kept running into that I like had no idea what the like the etymology of it was. And it was apparently like all these online slang dictionaries will be like, oh, they used to call the telephone the amici. And I'm just kind of like, why? And I was like, that sounds really familiar. And then I was talking to a friend of mine whose dad wrote pulp novels. That was his job. And he was like, no, the reasons why they called it an amici was after the actor Don Amici, who like all the time in his movies, he would just pick up the phone. Like he was just like notorious for always picking up the phone. And so like, it was never actually a term that people used for like calling someone on the phone. It just kind of like got blended in somehow to like all these like old timey understandings of words and phrases. And I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't put that into the book because it's not actually accurate, but it still makes me really happy.
Yeah, and like finding like terminology and like phrases for things is so weird. Like I saw this is a tangent, but Singing in the Rain toured by me and I went twice. And they make reference to like it's like the greatest invention since the wheel. And I'm like, why are they? Oh yes, it's because sliced bread hasn't been invented yet. So this place in
Exactly.
Oh my God.
1928, a year before sliced bread. I was like, wait.
I was thinking just when you were talking, and Jen, you might want to weigh in on this because I know Jen is like our golden age of Hollywood expert here. Bogart, because we're talking about Bogart, is actually a slang word now. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna Bogart something, it's hog it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's such an interesting actor, isn't he? Like
It really is. So I've actually been on a Cary Grant kick recently. I don't, if you follow me on Twitter, that's the type of gem you'll get. I love Cary Grant.
Jen, this is your time. Jump in.
I love him.
He has his little, oh my
you
God.
just
I've
watched the
actually-
Philadelphia Story for the first time, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did.
Oh, good.
And oh my God. I actually like ended it and I was like, okay, time for High Society. Let's do it. Let's see how these two films are different. And the thing is, I think I like the combo of Cary Grant and James like Madison or whoever. Not James Madison, that was the president, but you know what I'm talking about.
Jimmy Stewart.
Like better. Jimmy Stewart, thank you. I like that combo better than like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, but it was weird seeing Frank Sinatra young.
Oh
and he was
yeah.
actually kind of hot. I was like, wait, have I
It's
been
not
mistaken?
fair. You're like, you're probably a terrible person. Why are you so handsome?
Oh my god, I'm like old. I've definitely seen like old like movie like magazine covers with Frank Sinatra being like, oh, the problem with race today. I'm like, yeah, we want to talk to Frank Sinatra about race. A white guy. Let's talk to a white guy about race.
Yep. Yeah. But Cary Grant though, A+. Good
Yeah.
choice. Yeah.
He's so tall, and he's just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. The Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn combination, absolutely flawless.
Mm-hmm.
So-
And you're kind of
somebody-
like, yeah.
Somebody just said in the Q&A, I was just referring to an affair to remember in my novel half an hour ago.
Drop the novel name.
Yes.
What's the
Drop-
book?
Go for it. Yeah, no, one thing actually, so that kind of comes back to, the magic door. Oh, very
Ooh.
cool.
Oh.
Nice. It sort of comes back to like, so you're writing characters that are queer in, these time periods. How much research do you do into just the community back then, and just sort of, how you navigated the fact that literally your existence was considered like mental illness? I mean, and it's kind of sad. Like, I think like I remember reading that, like, like being gay and having feelings, like gender confusion and having, or gender rather dysphoria, it was like still in like these textbooks for like considered a mental health issue until way too, like, it shouldn't have ever been, but until way too recently, like you wouldn't even believe it. So like, did you get to do a lot of research into just sort of how you would navigate these spaces, being, a queer person in that time period? Yeah, I would have been called an invert back in the day. Fun.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I try to, but then it's also like, I'm also gonna ignore it a little. Okay, so Lou's relationship with Rosa Maria is totally like a fantasy, really, because like there's no way they would have been able to like be a couple, but they are, and like it's because it's fiction and I'm doing what I want because it's my book and my lesbians deserve to be happy.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there were still always winks and nods to find other people in the community. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
It was very subtle. It was terrifying in order to even make those winks and nods, but the winks and nods are there. They are in my book. I don't exactly spoil who is queer in the book, but like, they are there. The queer character announces that they're queer very deliberately, if you know what the winks and nods are for the 1950s. The other part is like, while you're researching it, it's the most depressing thing you've ever read in your life, of just how people had to hide and how, to what lengths they had to go to in order to, remain out of jail and out of prison. And it's really stark and astounding. But, at the same time, I'm kind of in the same vein of just like, I'm not ever going to make those punishments real in my book. Like again, like there is a certain level of fantasy that I want to maintain in the books of just like, no, the 50s sucked. Forgive my language, but like they were horrible. We do not want to ever emulate them in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, like I've made rules for my universe that I'm writing where it's like, there are no guns, there is no sexual assault, and my queer people are allowed to be happy. Those are my rules.
It's so big. And like, especially because like seeing like happy like queer couples is so important to me. So like I have multiple. There's like a little love triangle-ish in like Harlem Sunset, because it's like I'm gonna vibe with a like love triangle. Like and like I feel like my like characters all like have varying like levels of like gayness. Like it's obviously like a spectrum, but like One is like very gay. Like Lou is like very gay, and so is Raphael. Rosemary is somewhere in the middle. Like
I love
just being able
Raphael.
to, like,
I just have to put that out there. I love him so much. I
Everyone
love him
does.
so much. He is so
everyone does. Everyone's like, yeah, okay. So like, oh, this is a tangent, and this is a tangent, but in Lou 3, Lou gets another friend, and Raphael hates him on sight. It's like, he's like, this is my friend, not yours. It's great. I love him. I was actually just thinking about like the power he would wield if like he were a real person. It'd be so dangerous because he'd just be so hot and so chaotic.
Yeah.
Like Eugene from the Try Guys.
Oh my God, I love him.
I know. I really love the fact that you like include people who both present and are on like a spectrum of queerness, because like I think it's a weird myth that we actually hold on to in fiction, that there was no such thing as happy queer people in the 1920s, you know, before 1994. Like, no, of course
Like, when
people
did Will
lived
and
with
Grace
their
come
partners
around?
and had, you know,
Yeah.
the relationships that they wanted to. And it's just that, you know, we think that like gal pals were the only thing that existed. And it's like, no, like they were together. They were happy. Like they existed.
And like Lou and Rosemaria have like had such like a long life, like even like before the start of this novel, like they've been together for like a decade. Like they like live across from each other, and like there's love at first sight like that. And like even like Lou was like even like kind of questioning. She's like, I don't want to marry this random man my dad set up for me, but like I don't know if I want like another man. And then she like meets Rosemaria, and that's it. And, like that was so important to me, that like that kind of like lightning strike, and then like they're in the relationship, and like it's so like it's like the most stable thing in the book, because everything else in Lou's life is chaos. And then spoiler alert, but in Harlem Sunset, they're like living together in like their little apartment. And they like share a bed, and they like share a, and it's like domestic bliss. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. Oh my God, I need more of this. It's just because like that's what I really wanted. And like Raphael's kind of like sleeping around, but he has his own people too. Like it's like I really wanted to have like straight representation, but like for gay people.
Yeah, I have to say, one thing really interesting, personal note, my grandmother in the 1920s had a best friend who was a lesbian, and was like very like, it amazed me every time she'd talk about her, because I mean, this woman must have been like just like a queen. She was like, told my grandmother, she's just like, I think you're cute, I'm a lesbian. And my grandmother at the time was like, oh, what is that? And she was like, oh, it means I want to, you know, date girls. And, you know, at first, like, I thought that that's kind of where their friendship ended, but it totally wasn't. And I have my questions about whether or not my grandmother was like bi, but that's a whole other story altogether, because like she'd tell me these stories, and she'd be like, oh yeah, well, you know, like, yeah. And then like Roberta and I were over her mother's house, and she was making us pizza, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then she's like, yeah. And then we went out, and she got me flowers, and we did this and we did that. And I'm just like, ah, okay, you know. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it just like, it amazes me. And like, I really wish that I knew who this woman was. Oh, and one more thing. There's a picture of her that my grandmother had, and it was a very small picture. And, you know, every time we would ask her to talk about this woman, she would share a little bit more of the story. And like at one point, like my grandfather's sitting right there, and she's like, yeah, and I had a picture of her, and she was gorgeous. And like within 30 seconds produces this picture of this woman with like a heart around her. And my grandfather's like, yeah, that's right. True story, 100%. And like, again, like this was like the 1920s.
I think your grandparents might have been in a throuple. I
mean, it is certainly possible.
It's great. But also the fact that she's like openly talking about it, and proudly and happily, where it's not like a hush hush family secret, is
she's like,
truly
this is my friend. This is my lesbian friend.
It was so funny, because like you know, when I was still dating my husband, like I told him the story, and you know, I'd be like, yeah, and every time you ask her about it, she kind of tells you a little bit more. And he was like, oh, okay. And then one night I was like, it was about the time when marriage equality was finally legalized in New York. And I'm like, I'm going to have my grandmother, she's going to tell you all about her girlfriend, and you're going to hear that I'm not exaggerating this. And like, we sat down and I'm just like, hey, Nanny, what do you, and she's like, oh, I think it's great. I think people should be able to marry whoever they want. I was like, Nanny, didn't you have a friend, when you were 14 who was and she's just like, oh, yes. And she's telling my husband the story. And she's like, and then I tried to look her up on the internet the other day.
That is super cute.
The stories I want to hear.
much.
Like, it's not that I don't value like the doom and gloom stories that we always get. It's just like the happy stories do exist, and you have to break them out as much as you can to counter this myth that it's always been like hide in the closet, doom and gloom terror. Like, happiness existed and respect and mutual love and admiration.
Yeah, and it can happen even like if you're still in the closet. Like Lou is still in the closet,
exactly,
because she like has to be, but she has like this whole other life. Like she has like this whole like rich like romance life, and like just because people don't know doesn't mean it didn't happen. And like, okay, so I don't want to dox myself, but like I watched the show and it takes place in like the 1910s. It comes on the Hallmark Channel, but I'm not going to say what it's called. But there's these two characters. I'm like, they should be lesbians, but like everybody on like this online like forum are like, no, they can't be lesbians, it's illegal. I'm like, yes, you're right, it was illegal. That's why there are no gay people until 1994. It was illegal.
Because illegal
like,
things don't happen. Illegal thing,
Yeah, right. It's against the law. It never happened.
Yeah, like I never had a drink before I turned 21. Yeah,
the 1920s were so boring because like alcohol was banned and nobody ever drank ever. Not at all. They just dipped into their private stashes.
That was like a super interesting lesson that I learned when I was like studying history, was that, when we think of like laws, we tend to think, or like the common view is that like, oh, if there was a law that said like, yeah, no drinking, that meant no one drank, but like actually it's like if they had to issue a law in like 1941 and then again in 1942 and then in 1943, 44, like does that mean no one was doing it? No, like that means everyone was doing it, and they had to like keep reminding everybody to like, stop. Like,
yeah, no one cares about the law. Like, honestly, just like let the lesbians be lesbians.
Yes.
So how difficult is it to write a mystery? Because I read mysteries and I'm just like, I don't know how you get all of these plot points from point A to point B. Do you all start at the end and work backwards? Are you like linear writers? Are you chaotic?
So I always have to know like the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. The how is so important. And like that could change. Like I don't have to like stick to that, but like when I'm starting to find a novel, like I have to know like who's involved and what's gonna happen. And then like I need to know like how I'm gonna get Lou involved. Because she will be dragged kicking and screaming to the next mystery. Sorry, Lou. And then like it just kind of goes from there. Then like I'll try to build and go like chronologically. That's especially like super important for me for a timeline. I'm actually working on a dual timeline right
now. Sorry, that sounds really hard.
It is really hard. It's super hard, but I will say that it's actually really fun, like figure out like where my characters from the 1930s are, in the 1950s. And then just being able to see like them like, that's why I've been looking at Cary Grant's face, everyone. It's been so fun to be like, oh my goodness. So like, oh, so this character's now here and this character's now there and this character's doing this. Like, I really love that. And then like, I'll just try to like build the story from there. Like, I don't always have to like stick to it, but like, I need to know like how it's going to happen, like what's going to happen, like who did it. Like I just got this software called Plotter, like Plottr, and you can like put like whole timelines in. So like that's been really helpful, especially for like dual timeline. And I'm gonna like start working with that with Loop 3 when I get the chance, because like it'll be so nice to see everything like planned out.
I have to admit that the first 2 books that I wrote, I did not actually plan them at all. So like, and the third one, I actually did like the sticky note method where I was just kind of like, this plot is pink and this plot. And then like, it's been the hardest thing to write yet. Cause I'm just like, now I have to get it to this point where like this thing has to happen. So I think I'm definitely more of a pantser than a plotter, where I'm just like, cause I'm very like, I very purposely like do it by day. So it's like day one, Viviana does this. And at the night, at night she does this. And it's just like the investigation has to follow like a very strict, timeline because it is her job, so she's just kind of like suddenly like 3 months can't elapse because, she's like got a gig and, you can't have the same case last 3 months. Like she's on a very restricted timeline on purpose. And so like, I'm like, this is how you would have to go about doing it if you were an actual PI and like, needed to bill at the end of it once the case is solved. And so like, I really kind of just stick to the timeline of it much more than the actual like, and what is the solution for this? So like in Viviana Valentine Gets Her Man, like the question of like, why won't Tally Blackstone marry the man her father wants her to marry? Like, that's the easy one. Like, I know the answer. I knew the answer to that. Yeah, I mean, he's way too old for her, but and then other reasons. But like, and so like I knew the answer to that. And so that's like a good like overarching like structure to it. And then when there's the murder that happens and other things that happen during it, I'm just like making it up as I go along because I'm just like, let's throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of that addresses a question that came in from Michelle. She asked, do you know the how before you begin? And it sounds like you both have kind of different approaches to that. And I guess like to build on that question a little bit, do you find that like when the mechanics of the mystery require you to like change details or things that you're super married to, can that be like, is that hard to like, like kind of kill your darlings, as they call it? Like,
yeah, but usually it's for the good of the novel. Like I'm not like I actually just like this post on like writing Reddit or whatever, and they're like, oh, books should come with like deleted scenes. Like all my deleted scenes are garbage or like scenes I've rewritten to be better. So you actually don't need my deleted scenes. They're all there. Actually, okay, there was actually one from Dead Dog Girls where Raphael and Lou like dance in the street, and like I missed that scene, but like it's garbage. It wasn't in there. So I was so I try not to like I like to have an outline, but then like I don't like to stick to it too closely because then I'll get anxiety, and like if something's not going the way I want it to, or like if I have to change something, I'll be like, oh no, and it'll be like a 4-day breakdown. I just kind of play it by ear. Like I like to have a plan, but then like to play it by ear,
Yeah. Like in the first book, like the first couple of drafts, one of Viv's housemates who was a nurse now, she was a telephone operator. And I had this scene where like Viv goes to the telephone like exchange and she over listens to phone calls. And my friend was just like, Emily, that is the dumbest thing I have ever read. Like you have to sit through so many phone calls in order to overhear something. In New York City, there's too many phone. It's not going to happen. That is entirely unbelievable. But I'm like, but I like it. And somebody was just like, no.
Rosa Maria was a telephone operator too. But I'm also just thinking about that scene in Mad Men where like where like the telephone operator like hunts Sal down from like the telephones in the art department, and she leaves and goes, ciao.
I wish telephone operators still existed because it would just be the greatest thing in the world. Like I understand that it is wholly inconvenient, but I think it would just be great to just be like, hey girl, I need to keep connected to like this person. She'd be like, hold on a second. And it's just like, it feels like it's community.
Yeah.
I completely forgot Sal existed. You just said that.
Speaking of gay people, Sal
did not exist until 1994 specifically.
Never.
Like he was genuinely the most handsome guy at Sterling Cooper Draper Price. And honestly, if you don't believe me, let's fight. Like, oh my God, he was so handsome and so good. And like he just became can you guys tell I just rewatched Mad Men? Because I don't know if it's coming across very clear.
Okay. Such a good character and so compelling, and I have no idea why they would get rid of him after the first season. He was so compelling, and
he was so good. and he like got into like this marriage that like was obviously so fake, and it was Grey's Anatomy Sarah Drew playing Kitty Romano. And like there's this one scene where he's like acting out like the Bye Bye Birdie thing, and you can see it in Kitty's face where she's like, oh my god, my husband's gay.
Yeah.
But like what is she gonna do? And oh my god, the romance between him and Kenneth Cosgrove was something that could have been explored, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I would write Mad Men differently, everyone.
Yeah, he definitely chickened out with a lot of his characters. And I was like, why'd you have to go down that avenue when there were so many other
Yeah.
far more interesting avenues in front of you? But I
Yeah.
resent that show completely. So
Yeah. Oh, when he gets fired, it's like the worst thing, like honestly. And like, oh my god.
So are you both, what are you both working on now? I know you mentioned, you talked a little bit about Nekesa, that you're kind of like in, you're like, yeah, book 3, but yeah.
Yeah, we've got Lou 3 coming in the pipeline. And then I've also been kind of, wait, this is public. Yeah, I've kind of been working on TV stuff too. I forget, because it was like not public for like a year, and then like I had to keep the secret, and I forget that like it was in like my last deal announcement. But yeah, so like we're working on TV stuff. And like I'm working on like another whip and like another whip. Yeah, the dual timeline thing I mentioned takes place in like old Hollywood land and then old Hollywood. And frankly, I'm obsessed. And yeah, so Lou 3's been like chugging, and I've got like a call with it tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes.
It's very exciting.
book 3 hell is a very specific hell of just, you're trying to keep everything as fresh as possible and as interesting as possible. And you want to reference stuff that you did in the first 2 books, but you also can't give away the plots of the first 2 books because you're like, what if someone hasn't read them yet and they're just starting on book 3? And there's just like all this baggage that you have to contend with too. And you're just like, this is horrible. But also I would love a 4, 5, and 6. Bring it on. Like,
yeah. No spoilers, but Lou moves before, like at the end of Lou 2, Lou moves to a completely different place.
but that's huge.
Wait a second.
Kicking
What?
my ass. Yeah, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
tell you where. I could tell you where, but I don't want to spoil it for you. I feel like it's really
Read the
fun.
book.
It's
Buy
gonna
the
be
book. Read the
Yeah.
book.
yeah.
Borrow it from your
I'm gonna give-
library. Or buy the
Yes,
book.
that's perfect for me. I will say that me and my mom took a trip there in April, and it was very fun.
That's awesome.
It was a mommy and Nekesa trip. She's like, oh, I might want to go to this place for research. And she went, can I come? I'm like, how do you say no to your mom, guys?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. Like I just moved back to Connecticut from California, and my husband's never been to New York City before. And so we went, and he was just like completely like, he's from San Antonio and lived in Los Angeles. So it's not like he's from like small town nowhere, but he walks into New York City and he's like, oh my God. And I'm just like, also remember, it was never like this before. It's just like an entirely different city. It's like fresh and brand new. That I'm just like, we're walking like, and I'm just like, this is nothing like where the book is set. This is nothing like New York City when I was a kid. This is just a brand new shiny city. And he's like, we're having a really hard time like reconciling like New York City, how much it's changed, just like even in the last 10 years and like decades prior. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I know. So is everyone. Like,
Yeah.
We have a question, and I think this one's for you, Nekesa. Michelle would like to know, can you talk about the nano process? Was Dead Girl started with nano, or was it something you were already working on?
It was something I was kind of fooling around with. So I didn't have it was something like, so to back up, I just finished writing like a romance novel. And it was so bad, but Jordan Fisher was like the like face claim for like my like man, like the man in that romance novel, and I love Jordan Fisher. Can't believe he's a dad now, crazy. So it was just something I was like, oh well, I kind of want to do something different. And then like I didn't really start thinking about it until I started classes that year. I took this history course called Syosset in the city. And one time my professor was like, so what does everyone think of this course? And like I raised my hand and I was like, there's not enough Carrie Bradshaw. And he just stared at me like for a good 5 seconds and then moved on. I'm a comedy queen, friends. But we were talking about like the 1920s and like the 1800s, and we're talking about like Jack the Ripper, and we're talking about like the 1800s up here in Canada. And it's actually such like a thrilling course. We're talking about like how much the city has changed, and like the type of like laws, like people would have to like address their gender, and like that's something that was like enforced. And like Toronto was nicknamed Toronto the Good until the judge was like, what the fuck, guys, the city is not good. Then they stopped calling it that. But then like it was basically like, I think that like October, like right before Nana was like, I'm gonna try writing a novel set in the 1920s. And I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a murder mystery. And then I just kind of like jumped in with 2 feet. It was really like, I always say that Nana was like really good for like getting out of your own head and like getting like just some words out. But like it is always like what you make of it, like everything. If you don't want to write like 50,000 words, you don't have to. You can just make up your own goal. You can just fight. You don't have to do it at all if you don't want to. But like I feel like it really helped me, like especially like initially with the series. I don't know like where it'd be without it. Not gonna lie.
I've never even attempted it. I'm so impressed that you like you gave it a go. Like I find it so daunting that I'm just like, you have like an entire like brilliant series that just came around from you just going like, I'll give it a go. And I'm like,
Yeah, but like
I've never been that casual about anything in my life. I'm so impressed.
I've been doing it
like,
for,
it's so cool.
I've been doing it for so long though. Like I've been doing it since I was like maybe 13.
Oh wow.
I know. Oh, be more impressive if you knew.
What? So that wasn't your first step?
No, it wasn't my first time. No.
Nice.
My first. No. You do not want to read like the first novel I wrote when I was like 13. It's like that was like the first like. It was on like there's like a young writers like section, and they could like choose your own word girl. So I was like, I'm gonna write 20,000 words this month, and then like I was like writing during math class. Who needs math? Like I don't.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So like it's something that's like really helped me like writing wise. And like I'm especially grateful for like now because it's like how I got my series. But yeah, it's fun. Be serious or be not serious. It's fine. And you guys do not want to okay. I just want to say that was like a fantasy novel, but like not good. I really liked fantasy when I was 13.
Well, I have to ask like what your fantasy like critters were. Were they like orcs or like unicorns or like what elves? I gotta know.
I think that's like the wrote like high fantasy where everyone like rode horses and stuff. Like Legend of the Seeker, is that something? I think it is.
I don't know. I've never read enough fantasy, but
Wait a
I'm
second,
enthralled
wait,
by people who can do it.
Oh God, that one is, who wrote that one?
Okay, I know I'm thinking of the
Dude.
TV show, but there's also a book series. I'm thinking about the TV show because I was like 14 when
The
Circa aired,
book
and, like, I
series
was
is
so-
very different than the TV show in the fact
Yes.
that like it is not PG-13 at all. And I do recall, because I did read the first book, and I do recall
A Sword of Truth.
Sword of Truth, yes. So one of
Yes,
my
okay.
yeah, one of my first years because I was a children's librarian originally, I was very aware of that book. And I was very aware that there was a TV series based on it. And an 8-year-old came in and like with his mom, and she's like, I want to read the book. And I was like, I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to tell a kid that a book is not for him, but there is a 75-page S&M scene in that book. And like,
You know,
like, and I was like, wow, like, you know, like, I was like, listen, I'm like, just said to the mom, I'm like, listen, thematically, there are a lot of adult things in there. I would, I would just check that part out before, you know,
first. Yeah.
thematically, yeah, like, how do I say this is this book? Like, you can totally read the words, but there is a 75-page in this book. And like, my adult husband was like, I never like, no, and no offense to the author. I mean, Sword of Truth is really popular. Terry is a good kind, I think.
yeah,
You know, like, people love it, but like, you know, like, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I definitely remember like the TV show, and like the TV show starred like this really hot guy and Bridget Regan, who of course is stunning in everything she does. Good for her. And like, I just really wanted to like write like an adventure story. So I think that was what it was, but I can't really remember because it's also like a bit of time ago, guys. Like my first few like nano attempts were like unhinged because there was also one where I was like writing like an anthology,
Ooh.
like short stories. So I was like, oh, I need to take it easy this year. I'm gonna write like an anthology. And then, oh my god, okay, my favorite one.
20 short stories. Like, sure, that's gonna be easy.
Yeah, right. 1,000 words per story. Like, you're just gonna write 50 stories. It's fine. My favorite one was like it was set in like the 1940s in Chicago because it's like a noir. Like that's where noirs took place in like teenage mind. And it's like about like this like all these like men were turning up dead, and like this like one like guy who's like tried to solve it, and there's like a femme fatale, and honestly, I was totally onto something.
Yeah. Can I read that? Like
Is that it? So is that like, wait a second, like is dead men like companions to dead girls?
Like right now, I'm so happy that like the media that you saved things on when I was 14 can't be read anymore. So I'm just kind of like, oopsie daisy, no one can read anything from 1998 any longer. And this is fantastic.
So a couple years ago, my parents' house was broken into, and they stole the computer that like had all my like writing on it. So you guys can't read any. Yeah, like it was a few years ago. Like everything's fine. Like obviously they had like good insurance and stuff. But like you guys can't read any of like my old writing. It's stolen.
How convenient.
I know, I got so lucky.
Like terrifying. Like if you become really, really famous, someone can be like, haha. Like
I think it would have proved a hard drive. It would just be like, this is garbage. I'm like honestly, makes sense.
So we only have a few more minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or comments? It's been absolutely delightful. The book, so how long has your book been out? The second book in this series been out, Nekesa?
Since June 28th. So
okay, so I was like, I knew I was pretty far behind on it because I remember seeing it and I was like, oh yeah, and then it came up again and I'm like, oh yeah. Emily, yours just came out?
yeah, on Tuesday, actually, like brand new. And whoo, nothing can prepare you for how daunting the week of your book coming out is and how little you can concentrate on literally anything else. Like I've been trying to work through book 3 and I'm just like, forget it. I'm going to go walk the dog because like I can't think about anything else. It's so bizarre.
Do you want to tell us what a publishing week is like on it from both of your perspectives?
Just nervousness more than anything, and hoping that you're going to sell more than just enough copies to your friends and like 3 people in your family. You're just kind of like, oh God, I just hope I get above like 69,428 on like Amazon. You know, it's just like, I just want to be above people who self-publish stuff that they've never edited.
Yes, someone getting a review in the New York Times.
Yeah, I found that today. Obsessively Googling yourself is also a huge part of your publishing week, and hoping you don't go and cry. Like,
yeah. So my debut week for like Dead Girls, my internet went out the day before, so I had to like rush to like find a hotel room, and then I was like staying in a hotel. So it's kind of like very high, like yes, I'm like drinking champagne, I'm like eating chunky cake and sitting in this giant bed. And then the next day it's like, what do I do now? You finished it. What do you do now?
Yeah, the thing you've been working on like relentlessly but incredibly slowly for the last 3 years has happened. Yeah. And now what do? You have like this crisis of identity.
Yeah, and I was just sitting there like staring at my laptop screen like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah. And you're like, and then I have to do it again. Hopefully, hopefully someone will let me do it again.
Yeah, this year was super fun though because I went to New York. Excuse me, and I like went to like this really fancy dinner place with my friends, and we just celebrated, and like I had like a lot of champagne. They like bought me a little cupcake with a little thing that said congratulations. I was like, oh, and then I cried, and I had to be up at like noon the next day to go see 6, and I was like, I'm too hungover for it.
Yeah. sounds really nice, actually. That sounds really, really nice.
Yeah.
My husband was
Yeah,
like,
it was,
I should go to the grocery store and get you a cake. And I was like, yeah, that would be good. Like, ta-da,
You should
like
do
a
that. Did he do that?
celebration.
did he do that? Did he go get a cake?
Yeah, he went and bought me a cake. I was like, thank you. That's
Oh.
very sweet of you. And that was like the
Oh.
celebration.
Well, I want to thank you all so much for doing this. Please check out Harlem Sunset. Check out Viviana Valentine Gets Her Man. And
awesome
cover
covers.
art.
Covers,
Did we
yeah.
talk about cover art?
Oh my God, yeah.
It's both stunning.
Yeah, the clothing on your cover just knocks my socks off. It's beautiful. I can't stand how gorgeous it is.
I actually made this dress, and like I was like making it while we were talking about the cover design for book 2, and I was like, oh, can we have this dress on the cover of my show? Yeah, we can. So we did. It's great.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. Jen, do you have anything else before we go?
No, that was amazing. Thank you for making the time to come and talk to us and our patrons. This has been really wonderful.
No, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And sorry again about the chat being kind of down. I was able to fix it eventually. But yeah, no, this was wonderful. Please come back anytime. The two of you are like amazing to just watch interact.
This was a blast. Thank you so much for having us. Like, it's really an honor. And I know that we both love libraries and all of our local library systems too. And we were like, should we try to go for a store? And we were like, no, libraries. And it was just like really, really fun.
All right, everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming. And that is all. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.